Energy conservation measures for the USNS Altair and USNS Bellatrix. We will be discussing the purpose for energy conservation, measurements of each vessel in the study, current energy conservation measures in place, ideas for improvement, and a final thought. During this case study, the sailing experience on the USNS Altair is 97 years and the sailing experience on the Bellatrix is 55 years. This slide shows the Why should you care? To reduce environmental footprint and reduce operational costs. The point is, there are a lot of ways to conserve energy. Are you doing your part?
One thing I learned since I've been on this project is that, especially being that these vessels are dockside and are in ROS status, that a lot of different opportunities to try and conserve energy in different ways, because the ship is obviously not out at sea, it's not full bore. So maybe you could just go into a little bit of the few things that you're actually doing currently that are energy saving.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, there's with our situation of being an ROS ship, like you said, we're plugged into shore power all the time, and so we have to keep in mind of what type of energy usage we have here. So one of the main things that we have done on board the ship is secure lighting that we don't have to use on a daily basis. The ship is 946 feet long, so there's many areas on the ship that are not frequented daily. So what we have found is that by shutting off some of that light, it's reduced a lot of energy usage.
Yeah, definitely. I know one thing I noticed when walking around like a lot of the cargo spaces and sometimes in hallways and whatnot, you only see maybe a third of those lights were actually on as opposed to having all the lights on. So you can definitely get through without any issues, but you're not utilizing the entire area's lighting, which is
exactly what we've done there is we've just secured the lighting. And the nature of a vessel, you have emergency lighting available all of the time. So with that being said, every third light is an emergency light, and it's ample lighting for transgressing a space. Now, we also are a special case here when we have a lot of contract work on board.
Okay.
So there's areas that, due to safety concerns, we just can't shut off lighting.
Yep.
So what we have implemented on board is a duty officer schedule. At 7 o'clock in the morning, when you make your morning round, we go around and we start up things that we're going to need to use for that day. Air compressors, ventilation in engine spaces, and then of course lighting that we've secured overnight. And then after the day is over, 5 o'clock, and everybody leaves, then we go and we secure those. So there's a significant savings of energy there.
I know one thing that when we met earlier in the week, we had done a tour of the vessel, and in particular the engine room. We were looking at some of the equipment that was in place and being run, such as the ROS saltwater pump.
Yes.
We noticed that there was you're using that as rather the main ship saltwater pump. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the advantages, I guess, to using that?
Well, some of the advantages of that are it's a much smaller motor. It's a 20 horsepower motor as compared to a 35 horsepower motor. So your amperage draw, which is really what you're trying to save when you reduce lighting, is cut by using this ROS pump. Plus, we're not using a whole bunch of extra water. With the main saltwater service pump, you're using 1,700 gallons per minute, and on board we just don't have that type of usage, or need, I should say, for any of that cooling water, so a lot of it gets pumped overboard. So by using a smaller capacity pump, everything that we need is done, and we aren't wasting as much power with it.
Okay, that's definitely the key there. And also we had seen, I guess you just purchased a new Sullivan air compressor,
yes,
which is a lot smaller than the current air compressor that's on board. So.
Yeah, that's an on-demand control air compressor, but we can also tie it into our ship service. If we have small jobs that we're doing on board where we just need air for, say, 2 or 3 hours a day, we can run this compressor versus our water-cooled compressor. The Sullivan, as you saw, is an air-cooled compressor. So it's a much smaller packaged unit, and it's an on-demand. So it doesn't constantly run and build up air pressure when you're not using it. When you need the air, then it loads up, you get the air. When you don't need it, it just sits there and it runs idle.
Okay, great, great. I know one thing that's talked about often in like the home and things like that is the temperature of your hot water, and most importantly your hot water heater, in terms of setting that to an appropriate temperature where it's comfortable enough to take a shower and do the dishes and things like that, but at the same token you're not overusing the hot water heater for the amount of heat that you actually need. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah, well, we have a kind of a special situation here. We have a 5-story house that everybody lives in on different levels. So we have to keep our temperature up to a certain level because you have heat loss throughout the piping. So what we have done on here is we have turned it down to about 120 degrees on all of the elements. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people say, well, what about, as you mentioned, sanitation? Well, our galleys on board here are equipped with booster heat water heaters. So you get the boost up to 165 to 170 degrees so that you're ensured that all of the pots and pans in your dishwasher
One thing I have noticed, especially in your office and in other places in the cargo office and whatnot, is a lot of the appliances now, they're switching over to Energy Star appliances. And along the same lines too, appliances that are not being used, your refrigerator or somebody's computer or something like that that are not being used, being ROS status, they're unplugging. Maybe you talk a little bit, is the ship switching over to primarily Energy Star faxes and printers and whatnot, and maybe you talk a little bit, I guess, about your process of unplugging equipment that's not being used.
That's correct. And basically, as equipment fails or needs replacement, we try and requisition and obtain Energy Star appliances, office equipment. So we have taken those steps to reduce energy consumption, smart equipment. At the same time, we've probably got approximately 60 staterooms on the ship, only 10 of which are in use all the time. So the other staterooms, we've unplugged all the lamps, wall fans, and the refrigerators, I guess you could call it micro fridge. So there's no basically ambient current draw, or what they call vamping, to reduce energy consumption. And when people go home on the weekends, they shut everything down, shut my computer down, shut all the TVs off, everything gets shut off in the staterooms. So I'm trying to reduce energy consumption that way.
You being a chief mate, navigation and bridge equipment is obviously paramount and things like that. I noticed one thing is when you go up to the bridge, you notice that they have UV shades, that are on all the windows. Now, is there an advantage to using these UV shades? Is it more just for comfort of the eyes when you're on the bridge, or are there other advantages to that?
There are a couple advantages. Primarily reducing the UV effect or the heating effect of the bridge. The shades are made out of a tinted mylar material, so during the day you don't get that daytime heating effect, basically the magnification of the sunlight through the windows. And basically, since the bridge is all windows, each window has a shade on it, reduces the heating, reduces the amount of energy that we have to expend to cool the area, dehumidify the area, so on and so forth.
Okay. And I've also noticed along those same lines that each of the staterooms have these curtains or these shades over the windows. And it's not just like a traditional, throw a sheet over a window type of operation. You have, Coast Guard approved shades, typically get said. Maybe you can explain a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, that's correct. A few years back, we switched out all the curtains in all the berthing areas, and basically any area that has a window to a U.S. Coast Guard approved fire retardant curtain that actually, when they're pulled, blocks out the sun. They're called blackout shades. So not only at night when you're operating at sea, you don't want any light being exposed, but at the same time, it's the same mindset, same frame of thought as the UV shades on the bridge. Is you reduce the amount of light, and the heating in each room reduces the amount of cooling that you need to do, reducing the amount of energy that we need.
What we have done some research on, we have found a valve, a cycle-stop valve, and what that does is it's basically a pressure regulating valve that keeps your saltwater service pressure at a set pressure so that you're not wasting water overboard. So depending on whether you're using a bigger pump or if you're using the smaller capacity ROS pump, your water overboard is minimal, so you don't have the extra amp draw that you would have if you're pushing a lot of water overboard that you're not using. So we just installed that, so we're hopefully going to coop a lot of the benefits of putting that in.
Definitely, definitely. All right, great. Michelle, thank you again. I mean, this has definitely been a wealth of knowledge displayed here, and we hope to see a lot of negative trends in terms of energy conservation. We've been walking around is obviously all the weather decks and any hatches or doors that are leading to the outside are always shut when in port. Not only for safety and security reasons, but it also helps keep the house cool. Is that something that's part of like your standing watch orders, or is that part of the culture of the crew on the ship? Is to make sure that those doors are closed at all times so that everybody's comfortable?
That's true. It's more of a security and I guess maintenance issue, but it also helps in energy conservation. All the weather-tight, watertight doors are inspected on an annual basis as part of our annual ABS inspections.
Okay.
So those get inspected in addition to monthly inspections. So it's just a little benefit from doing proper maintenance, gasket maintenance, adjustments on the dogs to not only keep them properly maintained, safe, but at the same time reduce the amount of energy we have to expend to cool the space.
The next few slides will outline ideas for improvement. Reduction of general water pressure. It is unnecessary to have water blasting up shower heads and sinks. This will reduce power output on the water pumps. Use of shore cranes or smaller stores cranes. Ability to leave ship's cranes off, reducing a significant amount of power on a regular basis. This alleviates usage of aft 50-ton cranes, reducing significant power consumption. Introduction of a solar hot water heater. This will utilize the sun to heat water, eliminating electricity output by current units that are installed. Motion sensors for lighting, CFLs or LEDs, inside and outside of the house. Motion sensor lights would save significantly on power usage. Also, incorporating LED lights would also automatically turn on. 2 vessels, 1 air compressor. As both ships do not necessarily need their own air compressor while in ROS status, shut one off and utilize the other to power both vessels. Responsibility and accountability. Work together to help knock out energy waste. We like to instill the importance of energy conservation to all the crew members involved in the day-to-day ship operations.